sometimes we feel hopeless, and you need that person that will hold on to the hope for you when you don't have any. Yeah. And that's what I've always felt like we did for each other when we're going through crisis. I'm holding on to hope for you. I'm helping you see clearly, have perspective, but also know that everything you're feeling is completely validated and understandable.
Welcome to the Midweek Motivation Podcast, where we bring practical help for your faith and life. Here's today's episode.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's Midweek Motivation. My name is Jess, and I'm one of the pastors here at Westside, and we are talking relationship building. And Pastor Gabe talked about our ride or die, building up those ride or die kind of relationships. And so I've got my friend Tracy here. She's my ride or die for sure. And we got to know each other. We've been friends for over 20 years now. We got to know each other because we worked together at a local financial institution, and we partied hard. And when we worked together, we had so much fun. So that's where our friendship really started, and it developed into just this amazing sisterhood that has, spanned over the last 20 or so years. We've raised our kids together, been through thick and thin, supported each other, challenged each other, all of the things. And Tracy is the queen at making people feel loved and seen and cared for and really valued. And so I thought that that this conversation would be a great conversation just to share with everyone. So Trace, what would you say is the thing that you look for? Like, how do you go about building up your crew and finding your people?
Well, I mean, when you and I made friends, I don't think we were really in that mindset of being very deliberate about it, but we certainly got lucky.
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
As the years have moved on, I think that I like people that are moving forward in some kind of direction. So when I meet people that are on fire and they are looking for what the next step in their life is and how to just move along, those are the people that I tend to hitch my wagon with because, it's going to be like, jump in, it's time to ride. And that's my sweet spot. I like that place. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting that you point out that when we first met, we weren't really looking for those things intentionally, and yet we still were able to find that connection, and it built up real kind of slow. It doesn't seem like I know that you're intentional about the connections that you make, but I think that the way that you connect with people is the same, at least from my experience. Mm-hmm. And it really, like from my experience, so a little bit of context, we worked in a drive up at a local financial institution, and Trace is all about having fun when she meets somebody. And she made that space fun when we were connecting with our customers, when we were connecting with each other. And I think that that's maybe just a little bit of who you are, but when you're, but when you're connecting with people on that level, like you get to know them a little bit first, right? Mm-hmm. And so, what is it about that experience? I think what is it about that experience that's important to you?
Yeah, I think maybe that stems from just the way that I came up. I was raised in a church that was super strict. My relationships were not always very rooted because we moved around a lot. And so I think that one of the abilities that came out of that for me was just to seek out people that had the right attitudes, because it can be so crucial. Like when you are hanging out with negative people, it's very hard to be the one person who doesn't have like a bad attitude about everything. So I have always looked for people to bring into my life that are just going to light me up kind of. And the fun thing, I've had that comment from people before, and I used to be a little bit worried, like, well, people think I'm just not serious or something because they're, oh, she's so much fun. But it's true. I do like to have fun. I don't see any reason to be together if we're not laughing and smiling or figuring something out about each other. So I definitely do look for a certain type of attitude in people, I think, when I am looking for friendships.
Yeah. Yeah. They got to be able to connect with you on that fun level, right?
Right. And they've got to be able to, they've got to at least be coachable about loving themselves. When I met you, one of the reasons that I just fell in love with Jess when we worked together was the drive up we worked in actually was kind of sectioned off from everywhere else. Yeah. So we were, me, her, and another gal that we loved hanging out with were back there alone together. But Jessica had this laugh. Like, customers would make a joke with her or we would joke with her and she would laugh. And I just fell in love with her. Like, I told her that then. I was like, I love your laugh. It comes from some kind of a joyful soul. And that is what I like.
You have said that to me before.
Yeah.
And it's fun. You definitely like create a space where that kind of joy is welcome. It just happens in that space. So
yeah.
But then when we got to really know each other, we had started walking. We made I don't even know where this came from, but we like made an agreement that we were going to get together like once a week and start walking, right?
Uh-huh. Tuesdays
and then
Thursdays.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yep.
Yeah. And at that point in time, that's when we started to really recognize that maybe this friendship was a friendship that there was something to it.
Yeah.
We maybe didn't know of what it was then, but now we recognize it and look back and we've identified that we really have like a David and Jonathan kind of a friendship.
Absolutely.
And like just through conversation and being vulnerable and starting to share our lives with each other, we recognize that that there are a lot of parallels in our lives. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up, raising our kids together. There was like, we had all kinds of interesting parallels in that, like, we were both married. Tracy was getting married at that point in time. I ended up getting married shortly after that. We both had 3 kids and raised those kids together. Trace really kind of helped raise my daughter before I met my husband, and then the 3 girls after I got married. And
likewise with you.
Yeah. And
we were going to the same church and didn't know it. Do you remember that?
Yes, we were. We worked together. We're going to the same church and didn't know it, and which I think is an interesting thing to look back on and just like think about how even in our ministry, like we've not even done a whole lot of ministry together. Our ministry has been really kind of paralleled, but not together. It's kind of cool. Yeah,
definitely something that just really. It just proves itself year after year with us that God put us in each other's lives. And I think that when you are talking about the people that are going to be in that tight little inner circle, right? Like Jesus had 3 that were really close, right? And then 12 that were close, but not constant companions. And then the outer circle, right? We always talk about the circles. I just think that you have to look at that person and really look for those signs from God that that's who God is pairing you with. And it might be for, I didn't know how long this friendship would last when we started it, but I knew that everything in it was good because God kept showing me over and over where we were aligned together, where we had similarities, family with addiction, abuse problems, raising daughters that came out of kind of traumatic situations that were stepchildren, being in the same church and not even realizing that we were going together. There were just so many things. I always have felt like you were David and I was Jonathan, and God just put us together and said, you two are going to be knitted. Your souls are the same.
Yeah, I felt the exact same, actually. So I think what is important to you, just out of looking back at our relationship and your other relationships, what's important to you about how you show up as a friend?
Well, you may have heard I like to be fun.
Yep.
No, I mean, I really thought about that question when you told me that we were going to talk about this, because I don't think that I've put a lot of thought into this, but I have a desire for people that I'm with to excel, to find success.
Mm-hmm.
I like to be a support person. That's always been the case in my career and in my friendships. That's just kind of my sweet spot. I think I show up with unconditional love, and that gets deeper and more loyal as time goes on. And I find that I can trust that person and that we're on the same path. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with all those things. I think also, just from my perspective, I like the loyalty thing. Like that, I would agree with that. And I know that the way that people connect in friendships varies. Like I've got a couple of very close friends. And if anybody has watched any of my podcasts or any of my communications, when I say I was talking with my friend, 80% of the time it's Tracy, it's my friend, my sister. And I think that loyalty piece is so important, just because like when you're talking about a ride or die, this is a person, like I've got two people who I share everything with, and one of them is my husband, and the other person is my friend Tracy. And I know 100% of the time that those people are going to show up for me, and I want to 100% of the time be there for them as well and show up for them. So my husband and my friend Trace have seen me, the worst sides of me, and loved me. They've seen the best sides of me and loved me. And I've also done that for them,
Absolutely.
And so I think that loyalty, I agree that it's definitely one of those things that develops over time, but it's for sure a key to deep relationships. Right. And I was doing a study on this, preparing, and I know that I've heard this in other places, but it's interesting to think that these kinds of relationships are falling by the wayside. I don't know, Trace, if you've ever heard this, but like we're in like a friendship recession, where more and more people are connecting in different ways, but they're not connecting in these meaningful ways, right, where we,
very superficial
there. Yeah.
Thing that social media, I think, has been a large party in bringing on, something we didn't predict, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because we have these conversations all the time. We're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how people do these kinds of things without Jesus. But I would second that by saying, I also don't know how people would be able to go through these types of things without their people,
Right.
I know that my friendships have carried me through some of the most difficult things in my life. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. And I agree that it's a really sad thing for the generation that is now entering that time of really learning how to make those bonds outside of their immediate family, because we tend to only see the happy days that each other have, and the good times and the successes and the wins. And when we don't build that bond that's outside of the superficial, then we never get to come to our friend and say, you know what, I'm having a really hard week. I need some prayer and I need to talk through this. And I know you're going to be straight with me and speak truth in love. If I need a smacking, then you're going to give me a smacking.
Yes.
And if I'm being too hard on myself, you're going to say, don't talk that way to my friend.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I love about those kinds of conversations when you and I get together, I was just thinking about this the other day. We had like a pivotal moment, a conversation where we had an agreement that when we needed to come together and talk something out, that we were allowed to do so, that this was a free space and we could have conversation and we could vent, have a vent sesh if that's what we needed, but it was going to end. And in that end, there was going to be a resolution and a change in attitude. Right. And that's one of the commitments that we've made with each other to keep each other, I think, accountable on some level, right?
Yeah. I agree, because I hold my other friendships up to this bar that you and I have made for our friendship, because it is easy to get together and sometimes go off on the things that are a little bit negative in our lives or things that are bothering us. And that's fine. That's needed sometimes, especially when your other closest person, like I have the same relationship with my husband. He is my best friend. But if he is the thing that's poking me and aggravating me, I can't necessarily vent to him about that, Yeah. So,
perspective.
Yeah. But you're right. We have said, and we check each other in conversation constantly. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm done now. I just had to vomit all that and get it out. And then whoever is on the other side will inevitably say, okay, so what's the next thing? How are we going to get past this? How are we going to make it better? What's the resolution? Yeah. We don't always have it right away, but it's a whole different way of working through your problems than just going to somebody and complaining and gossiping. And,
Yeah.
I've had those friendships. I have, and fallen into them sometimes not even realizing that they were very unhealthy.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, so we've been talking, we started this series at Westside about Relationship 2.0, and we've been talking about the relationship of, we're in the book of Ruth. So this relationship of Naomi and Ruth, and a couple of things that I think that we've just naturally talked about already, but a couple of things that we pulled out in the message was that these really great relationships start with they start with me too. They start with empathy, like being able to connect with people where they are and resonate and really, just empathize with one another, which I think we did right off the bat, right? Once we realized that we kind of jived with each other, we started hanging out a little bit more intentionally and recognized those things where our lives paralleled. And I think that a lot of times we, especially in the friendship recession, we get into a space where we feel like, how am I going to meet people? You know what I mean?
Right.
We run into that challenge of making new relationships because we're just not even meeting new people. What takeaways do you have from that, or what solutions do you have? Do you see today in the world around us where there's opportunities to make friends?
Well, I think that people have to, of course, my answer is going to be to find people who follow Jesus, right? Because that is, and I know that this podcast goes out to everyone alike, and maybe not everyone is of that mindset, but the difference when you are finding people on that path is that if you're both striving for the same goal, no matter how you're trying to get there, you're going to find similarities and be able to support each other. So if you're looking for someone that you know can be loyal and can speak to you truth and love, the first place that I would go is I would get signed up for a group, or I would be attending a church, or I would be joining a ministry. I have found ministry almost surpasses groups sometimes in the friendships that it builds. There's something about serving together that just kind of hooks you in and gets you to really know the other person. And I can't think of a better way to find people with your own likes and interests than to go to a place where that is pronounced and taught and practiced. So for me, that's the church.
Yeah. I think and we met at work. I think that it's a great opportunity to connect with people and get to know them a little bit better. And this is the most meaningful relationship that we've developed over time is a relationship that I made at work, speaking personally. So there's those places. Also, like, you just have to put yourself out there and get out into like the grocery store or the library or join I think you pointed out, like, you got to be looking for somebody that you've got something in common with. So like, at Westside, we've got a knitting group. It's about getting together and knitting,
Right.
So there are those kinds of opportunities as well.
Yeah.
And then as our relationship has developed, and we can see this mirrored in the teaching that Gabe talked about. The second thing that we recognized is that Ruth and Naomi, Ruth told Naomi, "Hey, I'm with you." Like, we're in this situation and it's kind of challenging and terrible, honestly. They didn't know what was going to happen with them, but Ruth refused to leave Naomi. They stayed together. And actually, Tracy and I have had these conversations often about, like,
I'm
she's
remembering
actually
one very specific one.
she's actually from the East Coast. That's where family is from and stuff. And at the very, like, from our younger days, we used to have these conversations all the time about, like, going on vacation to visit over there. Like, she'd tell me all the time that I needed to go see Florida and the beaches and stuff, and that I would become a beach bum. And I wrestle all the time. Anytime the subject comes up of Tracy and her husband retiring over there, I'm like, oh, I might have to come with you. What were you thinking of?
There's going to be a guest room, a Jessica room.
What situation were you thinking of?
Actually, I was thinking of one where we had an issue with our two daughters.
Oh.
And we could not get it resolved, and it was kind of serious. They'd gotten into some trouble at school together, and we couldn't get truth out like we were trying to. And I made a statement at the end of our little meeting that, maybe we just didn't need to be hanging out together if this was going to be the case. And Jessica set me straight. I mean, she waited till the kids were out of the room, but she was like, "Look, we're family, so I don't want to hear that coming out of your mouth no more." And I was like, "Yes, ma'am." You're right. I'm sorry. But that really is what we're looking for, right? Is like it's like, I'm not leaving you. It doesn't matter if you had a problem, you can come to me. I'm here to stay. And one of the ways I recognized that in you was that we would go, when we were raising kids, we both had 3 kids, we both had a husband, we both had jobs. We went into times where we wouldn't see each other for months at a time or even talk. And I've had so many people that would get kind of put off by that or hurt feelings, or there would be a problem. And Jessica was always like, "I will never do that. Like, if you think of me, pick up the phone and call me, and I will not be like, why haven't you called me before now?"
Yeah.
So that's another thing that we really became loyal to each other. Like, I don't care if it's a day or a year. If you think of me or you need me, I'm here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And ditto. It's just the same way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm the cause of the lapses.
Well, yeah, we both had busy lives. So now we're getting back to that part where we actually get to do some of the fun things we thought about back then. So
woohoo, empty nesters. Awesome. Well, the last point that really was pulled out of Ruth that we talked about is the fact that we'll get through. So when we're looking at Ruth and Naomi, they're talking about they both have relocated and they're in this situation where they've got to figure out what's next. And the third point that we pulled out of that was, we're going to get through. We'll get through. So I'm on this journey with you. And it's the difference between walking the journey alone and walking with somebody. And that's funny that you bring up the situation with the girls, because we had so many of those kinds of situations. We've also grown up in our marriages together and been with each other and walked through some really tough times together in that, in our extended family even. And one of the things that I value my friend Tracy so much for is knowing that in those rough times, she's going to be right there by my side, helping me to think through important things that need to be thought through. Sometimes it's just, we're going to get together and we're going to watch a movie together and be in each other's presence. And that's the encouragement and the support. And I think that loyalty really comes through in those kinds of situations, right? Where there isn't even necessarily the right thing to say or the right thing to do, but your presence and just walking with you is the encouragement.
I think I heard someone say in a conference last year that sometimes we feel hopeless, and you need that person that will hold on to the hope for you when you don't have any. Yeah. And that's what I've always felt like we did for each other when we're going through crisis. I'm holding on to hope for you. I'm helping you see clearly, have perspective, but also know that everything you're feeling is completely validated and understandable.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I love you, my friend.
I love you, man.
I thank you so much for your friendship, and I thank you for being willing to jump on here with me and talk through friendship.
Well, my prayer would be that everyone in the world would be able to find sisterhood or brotherhood like we have found, because I do feel like God purposed it, and I was not intentionally looking for that person, didn't even know they existed. And oh my goodness, how would I have lived the last 25 years without her? You know?
Agreed. Yeah. Yep.
So
awesome.
Get you one.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Midweek Motivation. To make sure you don't miss any content in the future, please subscribe, share, and if you enjoyed this, give us a like, and consider popping by a Westside service some weekend. You can find out more at westsidecommunitychurch.com.